The thing, though, that strikes me a little bit is making sure that we distinguish between inputs and outcomes, because part of, I think, addressing what Councilmember Guerra is concerned about is to make sure that we know what outcome we are seeking when it comes to for example, the infrastructure in our communities. I know that government can oftentimes get bogged down by master plan, comprehensive planning. And yet, if we don't know or say and mean in some sort of a strong or binding way that we are committed to every community having curbs, gutters, and sidewalks by X date, then whatever inputs we are using to decide how to divide up an existing pie or funding stream, ultimately the community may be rightfully disappointed, exacerbating this distrust if we're not moving towards an outcome. And this isn't something that we do very well. I mean, not you, nobody personal. It's just what government doesn't do that well. And I feel this with, like, I brag in a happy way, right? That we put $119 million from Measure U and the general fund into inclusive economic development, youth, and affordable housing since Measure U passed. That's a true statement. Laney and Don Holm, worked all those numbers and put that together. And I also know that and that doesn't even include CARES or ARP. And I know, because we know some of the programs and the investments, that a lot of good and great is happening out of that. But what we don't know is how far that takes us in terms of moving any kind of a needle in any particular community. And I know it will never be enough, right? I mean, the fight for justice is never, and equity is never like, oh, we accomplished it, now it's done. It's always, we're always striving for. But the outcomes to me are crucial. And how do we use this opportunity here to focus, to develop outcomes as much as we are focused on the inputs that lead to discrete funding decisions?
Yeah, Mayor, I think that's a larger conversation, because I often think about, key indicators that we can measure, right? And benchmarking, right? That if we're putting these dollars in, are we moving the needle, and how do we know, right? That's really key. I do think that's a larger conversation that we will have to have as a council as well, right? I think setting those benchmarks is going to be key so that we know what our goals are, so that we're just not putting money, the inputs piece, right? That we're getting to the outcomes that we need to see. But I do think that is a larger question that I think this council will have to grapple with. And I know staff is looking for direction on that, but looking at those benchmarks is going to be critical. And we haven't even set those benchmarks, right? Like what are those benchmarks for the city?
If I may, co-chair, I know that we have to lead that, but I'm also looking for guidance and advice from Race Forward, from our city team, from our experts about how we do that, because what I just said is aspirational, and I would call it crucial and essential. And I could make up outcomes. I mean, we've sort of done it. I mean, I know what they are in the big picture in my head, but if we're going to develop a sustainable set of tools, then this is the opportunity to not miss that. No matter what we do, if we aren't moving towards the outcome of change in our communities, that it's going to be lacking. It's going to be good, but not great. And we want this to be great. So add that to the work, please. What I'm asking is that this be added to the work of all of us, including this ad hoc committee, so that we don't get to the end and we've done many great work and many things are changing, but we just still don't have a timeline for curbs, gutters, and sidewalks in our disadvantaged communities, all of our communities.